Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Very warm welcome to this session on how can we inspire service providers of the future. We have a very exciting session with presentations from across the world. And just a reminder, we have also a number of question and answer sessions during the presentations. And please post your questions in Partable so that we can get them to the presenters and get them to respond. Would like to introduce you to our moderator today, Oyturi Anarbekov. Oyturi is a researcher and country manager for IMI's regional office in Central Asia. And we are on a very tight schedule, so I don't want to spend too much time. I want to hand it over immediately to Peter, who will give our first presentation. Peter Walewijn is the World Bank's global lead on water and agriculture. Peter, over to you.
Thank you very much, Barind, and a warm welcome to everybody who is connecting to this session. We're very glad that you could make it, and we hope to inspire you on this important subject of improving the performance of how we manage irrigation and drainage. It is a subject with great gravitas, as irrigation manages 2/3 of the fresh water that humans use, and we're glad you all could make it. If you're a service provider or a policymaker or work in one of the other corners of this water nexus, we hope you will learn a thing or two on the centrality and the complexity of the issue, and we hope you get some new insights. So first, the gravity of the issue of service provision. Let's start with the farmers. We have all seen highly modern farmers of all sizes managing their irrigation perfectly. However, we also know that the reality is that most of these farmers are to be found outside of the world's large irrigation systems, as these systems suffer from institutional hangover, have been unable to deliver adequate, which is reliable and flexible services that allow farmers to unlock their potential. And reforming and responding to changes in farmer conditions and their needs is long overdue. And it is urgent on more fronts than only on the farmer side. By now, we know, and the whole world knows, that we have a water crisis at our hands. We have poorly functioning food systems. Later this year, we'll see the UN Food System Summit demanding more climate resilient pathways. We see cities not accessing water, and we know the iconic and also forgotten environmental disasters associated with unchecked depletion and poor water quality. The good news is we do not need to stick with this litany of poor irrigation management. It's increasingly possible to improve service delivery. We have revolutions in earth observation, technical revolutions with disruptive technology, sensors, telemetry, payment systems, citizen engagement. All of those make it possible and highly affordable to manage what previously, frankly, was more of an art than a science. And more importantly, we see now that we have our pioneers, we have professional service providers in increasingly diverse contexts who are taking up this challenge on reforming, sometimes structural reform, sometimes through field level leadership of agents on the ground. And it is these voices that we like to amplify today and bundle through the Inspire network. And we'll hear more from different corners of the planet soon. Next slide, please. So we just launched the Inspire network this last year, jointly with all the partners who are also on this webinar and others. And we'd like to use this to build a momentum in shifting the global thinking, providing very practical tools to our members, connect the irrigation sector to good examples from other similar service providers in public service delivery, for instance, water supply and sanitation, energy. Because these sectors will have a thing or two to say about themes that our sector hasn't yet dealt with, such as separation of policy, regulation, delivery functions, ring fencing financing, sustainable finance for agencies, clear performance benchmarks. And again, we'll also hear from presenters on these topics today. Lastly, just to say, well, this slide is the things we'll be talking on, right? We're reframing the dialogue, understanding the service, and supporting with clear analytical tools and clear action plans, because sometimes this whole topic of service delivery in the past has been mired in complexity and long discussions, but we can have clear action plans and clear tangible targets. So what are we working on? We are setting also the institutional home for Inspire with ICID. We are advocating the case of service delivery more globally. We're collectively dusting off our vocabulary, refreshing our learning. We are building tools with service providers together that will enable creating this vision. And these are efforts that will have unique translations in each country, but also have sufficient commonality to push a common global agenda. And on that note, welcome everybody. We hope for your active participation today, in the coming year also, beyond this session. And let me hand the floor to Oiture to moderate this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you very much, Wijsbrand. It's my honor now to present our distinguished speakers of the first session. The first session will address the thematic on what can Inspire mean for irrigation service providers. And with this, I would like to introduce our three distinguished speakers. First speaker will be Sri Pratha. She is a manager with infrastructure advisory practice of Deloitte, India, with over 6 years of experience working in irrigation, water supply, sanitation, wastewater, among other infrastructure sectors. She has multiple functional expertise across the water sector, starting from policy formulation till contract development across countries such as India, Bangladesh, and Zimbabwe. Thank you, Sri Pratha, for making this presentation. The next speaker will be Medina Laguna Griselda. She has bachelor degree in international relations, master degree in public policy and gender from Flasco. Additionally, she has completed several diplomas and workshops on issues related to financing. She has worked in the field of international financial organizations in National Financiera, Ministry of Finance and Public Credit, and now in the National Water Commission, where she is a deputy manager of management evaluation of the projects with external credit Gonaqua. Thank you, Medina, also for joining and presenting your knowledge. And the third speaker in the first session would be Vincent Kabuti. He's a deputy general manager at the National Irrigation Board in Kenya. He holds a master degree from water science and engineering, hydraulic engineering, and land and water development, with the distinction from UNESCO IHE, Delft. Furthermore, Kabuti has 16 years of experience in irrigation project development and formulation irrigation projects, starting from project identification to community for mobilization. Kabuti was appointed as a deputy general manager at the National Irrigation Authority, and National Irrigation Authority has an overall mandate to develop and manage all irrigation in Kenya. Thank you also, Vincent, for joining and presenting your presentation. With this, I would like to give floor to Sri Pratha. Please, floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Oiture, for the kind introduction. If you can present the next slide. Yes, to first understand what irrigation service delivery of the future looks like, I believe it's first important to understand what are the challenges that we face today. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. Rui? Yes, we at Deloitte are presently working with the World Bank in West Bengal, an eastern state in India, where we are looking at a 60-year-old canal system. This system, this canal network, the Damodar Canal Network, on one hand is prone to flooding, and on the other hand, during summer months, also faces acute water shortage with inequity distribution. This parity is not just common in Damodar canal system. This is a situation in most of the irrigation systems in the country, in India. So to look at the challenges, firstly, in terms of infrastructure, most of the irrigation network is open canal network with manual operation, with limited instrumentation, and the focus is on increasing coverage. If you look at it from the finance side, we are talking about supplying free water to thousands of farmers. Naturally, there is no cost recovery, and the cost per acre spent on irrigation is poor compared to several other nations. Now, because we're supplying free water, from the farmer end also, there is no incentive for them to use water judiciously. When it comes to the governance side, we are looking at, using the water is being handled, the surface water and groundwater are being looked at by two distinguished departments, which again creates a lack of overall, looking at the system as a whole. Now, if you take a step back and look at all these challenges, the underlying common theme that you would see is the focus is on coverage and not on efficiency. The focus is on creation of infrastructure and not on efficient management of infrastructure. So I think the first step for all the irrigation service providers is to move towards a sustained maintenance framework. Now, what do we mean by sustained maintenance is we need a unified performance-based delivery system. If you can move to the next slide. So next slide, please. In terms of unified performance, to define what we mean by irrigation service performance, we need to look at what are the expected outcomes of irrigation service delivery. So we are talking about efficient, reliable, and timely supply, so which we can measure through process indicators to which operator has complete control. On the other end, we also expect the irrigation service provider to irrigate more area with available water, which we can monitor through output indicators. So in terms of a performance system, we're talking about a process indicator, a non-conformance, which can lead to penalties. And we're talking about output indicators, a good performance, which can lead to incentives. Now, additionally, we also have, most research papers talk about impact indicators where productivity and the price of the crop comes in. But we believe because irrigation service is the first focus is on efficient system. So we're limiting our definition to process and output indicators here. So while we have a performance system defined, the next step is to ensure there is a governance system that can enforce and track this performance. So if you look at it, for this, we have taken inspiration from World Bank's utility maturity model. Yes, please, next slide. Wherein, we see utilities over time, the service providing agencies, which start out as reactive in nature, slowly progress towards a progressive framework where they are taking in feedback from the end users and they have structured processes to enable continuous performance, right? So if you look at taking the cue from water supply utilities, where most of the Indian water supply utilities are already well along their maturity journey, the irrigation system, on the other hand, is still in a very reactive phase. So we in West Bengal are trying to help this shift from a reactive phase towards a progressive phase. Firstly, by defining a performance management system. Then to enable this performance system, we're talking about the structured governance using cross-department bodies. Then thirdly, we are talking about enabling end user interaction using mobile applications. And lastly, not just stopping there, actually exploiting the data that we create through these apps, through remote sensing applications, where we can even go to the, we can manage the canal on an almost real-time basis. And at the same time, we can also look at predictive modeling for future as well. So to conclude, what can Inspire mean? I think a platform like Inspire can help us in this journey, this long journey of moving from a reactive setup to a progressive setup by collaborating and sharing the knowledge from other irrigation service providers in the country. Yes, thank you, Oitre. Over to you, Medina. Yes.
Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I work for the National Water Commission of Mexico, CONAGUA, and the name of my presentation is Improving the Quality of Irrigation Services Delivery in Mexico. Next, please. In my country, Mexico, there is an agricultural area of 22 million hectares, of which 11.9 consist of rainfed agriculture and 10.1 hectares consist of irrigated agriculture. The area under irrigation is composed of 86 irrigation districts covering 3.3 million hectares and approximately 50,000 irrigation units covering 4 million hectares. As you can see, Mexico is very big. Additionally, in 2.8 million hectares with abundant water, there are 23 technified rainfed districts with infrastructure to drain water excess. As you can see, the irrigated area is less than rainfed area, but its productivity is significantly higher, between 2 and 3 times. In fact, Irrigated area generates more than half of the national agricultural production. Next, please. The transfer of irrigation districts began in 1992, motivated by the creation of the CONAGUA and the enactment of the National Water Law. Transfers consist in conveying hydro-agricultural infrastructure to users organized in civil associations, which directly provide irrigation services at a parcel level. And in some cases, civil user associations integrate a limited liability partnerships. Next, please. CONAGUA is in charge of the dams and major networks. That's what we call headworks. And it consists in conduction channels, collector drains, control works, etc., which are considered of national security because they guarantee the supply and conduction of water for the different uses. 99% of the infrastructure of irrigation districts is already transferred to users, partially missing district in Hidalgo, near Valley of Mexico, while District 18 of the Yaqui people is an indigenous community, is in process of being transferred. Next, please. As I mentioned before, transfer irrigation districts are organized into organizations that are responsible for maintaining the infrastructure with their own resources. In the irrigation district, 468 civil user associations and 18 limited liability partnerships have been established. The latter is integrated by civil user associations too. Next, please. Limited liability partnerships integrates the president of each civil user association, and each of them are represented on the hydraulic committee of the irrigation district, which is the body of agreement for an adequate management of water infrastructure and operates in accordance with the regulation of each irrigation district. In some cases, CONAGUA provides limited liability partnership additional infrastructure. Next, please. Among the responsibilities of the civil user association is to carry out maintenance of the water conduction and distribution network, drainage networks, road, and structures for the best use of the water in parcel levels. Please, the next slide. Please. Okay, and in this slide, you can see the steps of the irrigation plans in the previous one as part of the irrigation district operation. Let's talk about this slide. CONAGUA allocates federal resources to promote, maintain, and increase production and agricultural area in irrigation districts, irrigation units, and technical rainfed districts through the rehabilitation, improvements, and expansion of hydro-agricultural infrastructure with measures like the ones you can see here. Next one. Next,
1 minute
please.
left, Grisel. Thank you.
Yes, next, please. CONAGUA also implements monitoring instruments such as STAC, CPAT, CSTEP, and you can see their meaning there, and provide incentives to improve the quality of the irrigation sources. The last is, it's okay. The agricultural sector helps to increase the level of prosperity of the country's citizens and their economy, and we are working on it. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Iture. Thank you, Medina, for this. My name is Vincent Kabuti. I work for National Irrigation Authority. Next, please. Our formal irrigation journey as a National Irrigation Board started way back in 1966 with the enactment of Irrigation Act Cap 347, which was basically centered around control. It was major government driven. We undertook all farming activities for farmers, and we made recoveries from sale of agricultural produce. And this period was characterized by low earnings for our farmers. This act majorly covered the development of public irrigation schemes. So from 1966 to about 1985, so establishment of public irrigation schemes, 7 of them. And during this time, we also had very many smallholder irrigation schemes that were developed outside the existing legal framework. However, in 1998, after market liberalization, these are some of the things that happened in the world. We had our farmers revolting when really they realized that they can generate more revenue from their agricultural production, and yet NIB was stifling their growth. And out of this revolt, we saw a collapse of all public irrigation schemes. There was no more agricultural production in these schemes. So out of this, we had to rethink and re-engineer. And one of our first activity was to normalize operations in these public irrigation schemes. And with this, we divested from non-core activities, and we had sort of rapid results initiatives that made sure that our 7 public irrigation schemes are back on online. And the success of these schemes then saw our government have an accelerated investment drive that has seen the area under irrigation increased by over 200,000 acres, major in the smallholder irrigation schemes. That revolt of 1998 triggered the reform journey for irrigation in Kenya, which has culminated in legislation in enacting the Irrigation Act of 2009, which is more service-oriented, has recognized the role of farmers in irrigation and focuses on irrigation performance. So where does this leave us as far as service provision is concerned? Next. As a key policy change, we during normalizing of scheme operations, we had no farmers coming on board, and we enhanced their role in irrigation irrigation management. And here we adopted participatory irrigation management principles, where we have joint management by authority and the farmers through their IURs. With this, then the responsibility of the authority has been now construction of irrigation infrastructure, forming these IURs for our farmers, operating and maintaining primary irrigation infrastructure, and training our farmers. Farmers on their part are supposed to do O&M for tertiary irrigation infrastructure, carry out on-farm irrigation water distribution, pay the O&M, and actually undertake all agronomic practices in paddy production. For us to do this, giving an example of one of our public irrigation scheme, namely Moi irrigation scheme, the management and farmers have come up with some sort of scheme management tools. Jointly, they develop a cropping program which is monitored. They develop an O&M fee recovery plan. They also have developed a water conveyance distribution application monitoring plan and water distribution plan. And through these tools, then we are able to see to run the crop production right from the beginning to the end. To actualize this, on the part of the National Irrigation Authority, the scheme management is put on performance contract. And some of the indicators we look at in this performance contract is irrigation area and yield indicators. And ideally, the performance contract is a requirement by government for all state agencies to make sure that they are able to provide services. There are also biweekly meetings that are held with IUA leaders to review the implementation. On farmers, on their part, farmers who are non-compliant are left out. And for IUA leaders who have delivered, especially on area irrigated and percentage of O&M is collected, they are paid allowances. As an authority, we are looking at upgrading irrigation infrastructure, undertaking a lot of operational research to make sure that our farmers enhance their productivity, a lot of training and capacity building, and at the moment we are doing irrigation system modeling so as to improve on water distribution and management. With these interventions, you've seen the irrigation area increase from 16,000 acres to 30,000 acres in my irrigation scheme, and production increasing from 32,000 acres to 95,000 acres annually for basmati rice. And a lot has been learned from this, and from this, then we really want to scale up this service orientation. As I mentioned earlier, this covers this approach has been adopted in a public irrigation scheme, but this only covers 10% of our irrigation area. We have 56%, which is more the irrigation schemes. And as an authority, we are looking at how then can we provide irrigation services in this space. Some of the areas we're looking at is now making sure that they are working IUAs. These will be registered as legal entities as provided in the Act so that they can enter into contracts. We're also decentralizing services by establishing county irrigation development units and also regional offices, take services closer to the people. We are in the process of negotiating and engaging in service level agreements so that we sit down with these farmers and agree this is a kind of service in terms of reliability, in terms of reliability, adequacy, flexibility of the amount of water that is the irrigation service. And this is one of the things that we are piloting so that we see how best can we roll out from this. Through irrigation acceleration platforms, we are promoting collaborations from irrigation stakeholders to make sure that they also keep in this irrigation space, and also focusing on modernizing irrigation systems. And this is where the Irrigation Authority is also looking at mobilizing resources to continue providing these services to farmers. So really, what can inspire mean to us as an authority is getting to understand and getting the right tools to know how best we can go into this space of smallholder irrigation schemes, because that is where the future is for irrigation in this country, so that we are able to provide services and able to meet our irrigation needs, and noting that our country is 80 to 89% arid. So water, every single drop of water is quite important. Thank you very much. Brand, I take it to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vincent. Do we have, we would like to thank all our distinguished speakers for presenting your knowledge and inspire how it can be helping. And we see that there are a lot of similarities and complementarities of the work which you are doing across the world and which can be learned via our Inspire network. Asbjørn, do you have any questions?
Oyturi, there are no questions yet. My suggestion is, in view of the time, to move to the next session, and then we do all the questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With this, I would like to introduce our distinguished speakers of the second session. The second session is titled Irrigation Utilities of the Future, Performance Monitoring of Irrigation Service Delivery. The first speaker would be Rubina Khatun. Ms. Rubina Khatun currently engages as an executive engineer with Barind Multipurpose Development Authority based in Rajshahi, Bangladesh. She specializes in irrigation management and adoption of the new technologies to modernize the traditional models. She has more than a decade of experience in implementing prepaid metering system across northwest Bangladesh. She is an avid believer for finding simple solutions to complex problems related to irrigation and farmers' well-being. Ms. Rubina will going to present with her presentation on irrigation utilities of the future, performance monitoring of irrigation service delivery. Thank you for this presentation. The second speaker would be, it would be joint presentation by Eva Peck and Maher Salman. Eva Peck, she is a technical officer in the Land and Water Division at FAO. After gaining experience in several research institutes as an engineer and economist by training, Eva joined FAO as a water management specialist, working with irrigation and water resources management group of the Land and Water Division. Eva worked on a wide spectrum of topics, including small-scale irrigation development, performance assessment of irrigation schemes, water resource monitoring, and drought management in both developed and developing countries. Eva nurtures a key interest in innovation and technology in water management to find pathway for sustainable development. Thank you, Eva, for your also presentation. And Maher Salman is a senior land and water officer at Water Resource Management Irrigation Department and team leader at FAO. He is also believes as FAO focal point on drought and leads FAO's operation unit of the Adaptation Fund to help developing countries to build resilience and adapt to climate change in his belief. So Eva and Maher will present as presentation on irrigation performance benchmarking. And with this, I would like to give floor to Rubina Khanum. All of you have 10 minutes for your presentation. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Hello, thank you very much. Distinguished participants, I am Rubina from Barind Multipurpose Development Authority, Bangladesh. I am going to give you the brief picture of sustainable and financially viable irrigation management system. I would like to say about performance monitoring of irrigation service delivery in Barind system, Bangladesh. Next, please. Barind has two types of irrigation equipment, one deep well and two LLP. First picture shows electrified deep well schemes with Barind pipeline. Second, low lift pump energized by electricity. Third, low lift pump energized by solar energy. All pumps are run by prepaid metering system. Next, please. Evolution of irrigation charge system. In the year 1985, irrigation charge is collected per unit land or by season or crops. It was directly cash collecting irrigation system. Then in the year 1992, BMDA developed a manual paper-based irrigation coupon system, but it has some limitation. It was manual system, financial cheating, coupon manipulation, meter tampering. At the end of the year, huge amount of coupon preservation problem. This prompted to introduction of smart card of prepaid meter system. In the year 2004, we introduced the prepaid metering system. It is computerized system. Next. Irrigation by using prepaid meter. First row shows farmer collects smart card from local office. Second row charges the smart card from MBU. Third row, farmers goes to pump site and insert the card into prepaid meter for getting irrigation water. Getting any problem, farmer complains to local office or pump operator. Local office always tries to keep ready the total irrigation system like pumps, meter, electric equipments, water distribution system active. Office also appointed an operator for every pumps who looks after the whole system and provides service to the farmer. Data collected for making different types of report at local office. Total system is monitored by BMDA headquarters. Next, please. After installing prepaid meter, irrigated area increases 22%, number of beneficiary increases 13%, irrigation charge 9%, and electric bill decreases 7%. Second graph shows the productivity. The productivity increases gradually. Below table shows present irrigation service charge per hour for different discharge capacity of pump. Next, please. Financial independence and sustainability. BMDA is an autonomous government organization under the Ministry of Agriculture of Bangladesh. BMDA has been created in 1992, but BMDA pays salary and wages to the working manpower from its revenue earnings. Almost 80% expenditure covers salary and electric bill. Study suggests that the system is financially self-sustaining. Dr. Tushar Shah, 2014. Another study recommended Barind has highly capable and well-organized management system with 100% revenue return on water pricing. Swiss Red Cross, 2016. Next, please. Visits for replication of Barind model beyond Bangladesh like India, Nepal. International organizations like UNDP, IW, MI, ADB, World Bank, and Bangladesh other project of BWDB, Thakurga, Deep Well Project, Muhuri Irrigation Project, GK Irrigation Project. Next, please. Replication of Barind model with picture. ADB several times visited Barind to see how prepaid meter system working over there. As ADB, second picture shows, as ADB was fully convinced, that's why they conveyed the message to India and Nepal for different irrigation project and also within the Bangladesh and arranged visit. Third picture shows 1 hour interaction between BMDA farmers and BWDB project farmers to exchange their views. Fourth picture shows BMDA is working as reporter just to note down the discussed topics. Next, please. Awareness building. Farmers training is done to interact with farmers group and to get feedback from them. Group discussion is done to know the advantages and disadvantages and to get the way of improvement. Next, please. Improved services for increased earnings. Use of smart cards ensures timely and required amount of irrigation water delivery. Win-win situation prevails between service providers and service receiver or water users. Providing better services ensure increased earnings. Complaint register is strictly maintained to follow first come first serve mechanism. Service providers are always alert to keep the machine in running condition to avoid loss of earnings. Earnings for irrigation service charge meets total salary and wages, operation and management and part of the investment cost. Irrigation service charge assessed by a committee composed with engineers, people's representative and administration personnel. Next, please.
Mrs. Rubina, 2 minutes left, please. Thank you.
Lesson learned. Our motto is best possible service for most affordable service charge. Must have reliable irrigation system, electrification or solar, underground plastic pipe, prepaid meter, supervised crop credit. Quality management, independent management, engaging women, transparency, ensure financial viability. Each of these steps must be mastered with equal importance. Lacking of any one of the steps will hinder the process of reaching optimum yield. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rubina. Thanks very much, Euter. I take from there for the next presentation. I will share with my colleague, Eva. Through this presentation, we will give you a quick insight into the core concept, challenges, and field implementation of irrigation performance benchmarking. Next slide, please. So, as the supply chain of agriculture water management shows, water delivery service is practically the direct interface between water resource planning and farmers. But if it comes to benchmarking, the overall objective of introducing benchmarking and its methods in water delivery service is to improve the performance of the irrigation system and its management as measured against its objectives. In other words, the aim is to improve the level of service provided to farmers. So benchmarking by itself is a dynamic process and requires a continuous change towards better and renewed targets. Better water delivery service usually can realize numerous goals, and starting with farmer satisfaction to better use of resources to enhance agriculture production, which is in the end the aim of end users, our farmers, and breaking the cycle of the expensive, the lengthy and adverse build, neglect, rebuild cycle. Next, please. So why benchmarking? Irrigation performance benchmarking has conventional merits that drive the change from current to better performance. So benchmarking usually is grounded in data acquisition and interpretation. So the resources are necessarily quantified throughout the process. it highlights where any efficiency issues arise, and it provides a continuous measure between the current situation and the achievable or target situation. And it indicates how the changes relate to these target values. Benchmarking also provides a systematic assessment that is also comparable within a system and also with external standards. So through the acquired information, strategy making can be supported and performance can be consistently improved. Next, please. What challenges it has? Our field experiences show that conventional benchmarking processes have critical challenges that can hamper their implementation. Starting with the most common one, the long-standing challenge, many benchmarking processes do require substantial data background, while we often work in data-poor environment. Also, we often still use indicators that are disconnected from the final beneficiaries, from the field, due to the difficulties to reach fields, while we also understand farmers' need is a key to build sustainable irrigation sector. Another question which is important with benchmarking is the return on investment of this process. Benchmarking requires human and financial resources, but their tangible and immediate benefits can be measured only over time. So how can be the cost of benchmarking and cost of inaction quantified or compared? Or better put it, what are the incentives to invest in benchmarking process? We have also new challenges that come from the changing environment. Nowadays, we work and we hear about non-engineered structures that are increasingly popular and preferred over gray infrastructure. So we need to craft methods suitable for the performance benchmarking of these non-engineered structures. An example is the nature-based solutions we hear always. Also, climate change forces us to continuously redefine our target values or indicators to provide a response to its impact. And not forgetting that the demand is always growing due to population increase due to climate change, due to emerging sectors, all prompts us to make benchmarking processes more dynamic and flexible. Next, please. So it's always the dilemma of performance indicators. Usually there's an ample, as we know, number of benchmarking performance indicators that are currently in use. As irrigation schemes in developing countries are under-resourced, in all means, we need to consider streamlining these indicators and select those which are less complex, feasible, and adequate to the overall objective of irrigation development. Some tools will be presented by my colleague Eva will show as an attempt to address those issues or the problem of complexity and indicator selections. Next, please. So the types of performance, let's say, assessment is important also to conclude with before going into the practice. Consistent monitoring of performance is equally important process that might better respond to the unique needs of individual irrigation system. So generally speaking, when an internal process is established to measure performance, we differentiate 4 types of, let's say, assessments. These are the operational performance assessment, targeting the operational procedure. These are the strategic performance assessment, measuring the level of the utilization of resources to achieve the required level of service. These are the diagnostic performance assessments to detect the causes of performance flows. And last, the comparative performance assessment to compare the performance of service providers and set standards based on the results of comparison. Tools are common to deal with each and could be joining a number of them. And I hand it over to my colleague Eva now to tell us about some of the tools in brief, and also some of the practices in countries from FAO's point of view. Eva, to you.
Yes, thank you.
4 minutes left, thank you.
Oh, thank you. So little time left, and it's quite difficult to take account of all existing tools. I will be fast to present you a couple of new tools, which are the latest development, basically. Starting first with the series of mapping system and services is a package of comprehensive and holistic approach expanding to different types of irrigation systems. The key strengths of this tool is that it guides users through an entire modernization plan from the performance assessment to the preparation of new engineering and management design. This so-called MASS family has the very first step, the rapid appraisal procedure for the physical performance assessment of the irrigation scheme, and the combined optimization performance analysis method for the hydraulic performance assessment in the pressurized irrigation systems. Basically, these computerized methods respond to two key challenges, which is the vast data requirement of the benchmarking methods, and the other is the need for the participatory approaches. And how they do it. Basically, this software, they differentiate the key indicators from the ancillary indicators. And also in their response sheets, they require the opinion and the perception of the end users. Also, we can leverage good practices from other sectors. For example, if we take a look at the water sanitation service, the new tool of utility of future was designed to enhance the transformation efforts. This holistic approach starts from the diagnostic phase, goes through the short-term planning, and it supports a 5-year strategic plan. So basically, it helps the utility managers identify the service gaps and to take corrective measures. But beyond the holistic approaches, we also need sometimes more targeted approaches. If we take an example of the automated image-based analysis for the benchmarking of canal condition, this is really a pioneer of future development because it's rather built on the remote working modes, and it can be operated at a considerable lower cost and from smaller data set. Finally, the analytical framework and approach for irrigation drainage services, a diagnostic and comparative assessment. It uses a selected number of indicators from different sources, so it somehow relaxes the burden of excessive data requirement. Next, please. Next slide, please. So the irrigation performance benchmarking is not only theory. So we have to be careful to keep it as pragmatic as possible. Two very short case studies, how we can prove this statement, basically. In the case of the rapid appraisal procedure implemented in Central Asia, in the chart, we can see that one of the irrigation scheme has a large water oversupply. Despite this fact, the scheme has temporary water stress. So the key message here is that benchmarking and performance assessment is not only for irrigation systems under constraint. Next slide, please. Also, we found that the perception of the management and farmers are often different. So assessment must always involve all kinds of stakeholders. And another key message is that appraisal of irrigation systems cannot follow a silo approach, but it has to be in a context. And if we take, for example, the case of Central Asia, many irrigation schemes are supplied by pump stations. So without having an understanding of the energy sectors, it's very difficult to take stock of the limitation of irrigation development. Next slide, please. The very final case study is the implementation of the pressurized irrigation rapid appraisal procedure in pressurized irrigation system in Egypt. This chart shows the responses of 9 water user associations. They were requested to indicate what level of services they provide. It's quite clear from the chart that no consensus or clear agreement on the responsibilities of the water user associations exists. So basically the key message here, this highlights that the fact that assessing the soft components is equally important to the assessment of the hard components of an irrigation system. And I think I was quite short. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maher and Eva, and also Ms. Rubina, for your good presentations. With this, I would like to open the Q&A session. I would like to ask our participants, please send your questions of our speakers in the chat room if possible. So far, there are not so many questions I received, but we have questions which we would like to ask our panelists. One of the questions, which is mostly related to the first session speakers, about questions, can you ask about the reasons why the organizations adopted a service orientation in the management of the irrigation schemes, and what were their incentives from your cases? So this is for 3 of our distinguished speakers from the first session. Please. Who would like to take the floor?
I can take this one. For our case in Kenya, I would think one of the things is that the fact that our public irrigation schemes had all collapsed and we needed to bring them back to operation, there was quite a huge, quite a number of staff were laid off because we could not sustain the meeting their personnel emolument requirements. So we were working with a small staff complement, and we required to bring these irrigation schemes back to operation. And this is where we decided now we have to shift, focus more on providing services to these farmers, walk this journey together so that we are able to really utilize this irrigation infrastructure. And in all our 7 public irrigation schemes, you've seen farmers going up to, in some areas, going up to 2 and 3 seasons in 1 year. So it was quite an improvement, and we do feel that going forward, this may be very useful to be adopted in a small-scale irrigation schemes, which we've come to realize that some of them are operating at 40 to 60% percentage utilization. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. Do we have any addition from Medina or Sriratha?
Oh, thank you. Well, in our case, of course, organization adopt a service orientation because they know that they have to gain more. They you know, in the north of our country we have a very strange agricultural sector. We produced a lot of tomatoes, avocados, and you know, this kind of fruit that it is very, we have a lot of profits of it. Then it's important to be better every day.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just like to add that, you know, the need for looking at service is twofold, right? One is because there is a water shortage in your summer months, there is need to look at improve irrigating more area with available water. And to do that, you need to incentivize the operator, and you need to ensure there is enough motivation and there is proper tracking to enable this operator, the service provider, to irrigate more area with the available water. As water shortage becomes more imminent, we need to see how we can, looking beyond the canal network and looking at how we can save water in the overall network rather than just the canal system itself. I think that is what I would like to add.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Now there is also another question coming for our second session presenters, speakers. As far as you're aware, most of our developing countries are still service providers considered government agencies, but right now PPP is coming, private partnership in the service provision. But the question is how to make sure that service providers, in particular government agencies, adapt holistic benchmarking assessment in their system, in their operation. How can we achieve it? So this is open question to our second session speakers, please.
If I may start, and actually that's what we face often when we do benchmarking, when we deal with governmental agencies. That's the issue of the capacity, the availability of tools to do so. And making those tools available is essential. So that they need to have those tools. As we presented, there are common tools by different organizations, and these common tools, if they are made available to let's say to organizations, governmental, and then with now having more integrated private sector or so, then that is one way to do. The other way is the problem exists always, is that data acquisition. So we often face that in any benchmarking size. So they should also pay much attention to acquisition of data and have that systematized. So when tools are available, then also easy to make the right benchmarking. And last, of course, indicators, and that comes to the tools, because you have conditions, you have common, you have schemes, indicators that needs to be collected, and then how you compensate that with other methods, such as the days now we have GIS-based means. So that could be a third. But I would insist that the tools, the first one is essential, that governmental institutions should have the means to do so.
Thank you, Maher. Eva, do you have any additions?
Yes, actually, I think we have to strengthen the intermediary role of the water user associations or any kind of farmers organizations, because benchmarking is beneficial to all, basically to the governmental stakeholders, the state stakeholders, and also to farmers. But as Maher told, the voice of the end users, it's very low. So we need organizations who are able to represent the farmers. So I think what is important here is to strengthen the water user association and include benchmarking and performance assessment in the mandate of the water user associations. So there will be really a flow of data and information between the state and the farmers, and this could really ensure that benchmarking is in place.
Thank you very much. I think with this, I agree that this performance benchmarking is related to all type of agencies who are responsible for delivery of water services. I would like to thank all of our panelists, distinguished speakers, for your excellent contribution for this session. With this, I would like to give floor to IJsbrand to conclude our session today. Thank you.
Thank you, Oytur, and let me join you in thanking all the presenters for their excellent and very interesting presentations. It's an exciting new topic in irrigation management to talk about irrigation service delivery. It is relatively new, but therefore we are in a very exciting area where we can really make a lot of progress. Ultimately, the consideration is that irrigation schemes, irrigation projects provide services to farmers, and it is important to improve the quality of those services. We've heard from a number of different countries across the world how they are improving the quality of these irrigation and drainage services. For example, benchmarking, performance-based management, accountability through payment for groundwater in Bangladesh, and irrigation management transfer in Mexico. There is still a long way to go, but there is a lot that we can learn from other sectors, especially water supply and sanitation, where service delivery has been much more developed than in irrigation. And there is a lot of material that we can learn from, actually. For all those who want to learn further on irrigation service delivery, I'd like to invite you to join INSPIRE, the International Network for Service Providers in Irrigation Excellence. We have regular meetings and regular webinars that you can join. So please do, and we'd like to learn from you, we'd like to hear from you, and we'd like to share our experience with you. With that, let me again thank you, all the presenters, and let me also thank GSWP, who has been helping us in organizing this session, and very much appreciate it, and look forward to moving forward on this road towards improving service delivery. Thank you very much.